broken-minded, gotta carry the weight. Know this pain's been excruciating. I know you've been losing patience, but what you need is to be free. Relieve yourself from all the grief. Don't be scared to free yourself. Clear your mind from what holds you back. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. Me right now. Don't you know that you don't have to stay the same? You can just change your ways, open your mind to change. Oh, be who you are. Stop all the shields and trying to hide all your flaws. Just open your arms. Don't be scared to free yourself. Clear your mind from what holds you back. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. Me right now. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. Me right now. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. Me right now. Living in a fragile state. You're heavy-hearted, broken-minded, gotta carry the weight. Know this pain's been excruciating. I know you've been losing patience, but what you need is to be free. Relieve yourself from all the grief. Don't be scared to free yourself. Clear your mind from what holds you back. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free. Me right now. Don't you know that you don't have to stay the same? You can just change your ways, open your mind to change. Oh, be who you are. Stop all the shields and trying to hide all your flaws. Just open your arms. Don't be scared to free yourself. Clear your mind from what holds you back. I wanna be free, I wanna live free, now that my mind's free.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for September or August. What month are we in? For August year-long reading challenge teen book discussion. Today we are going to be talking about Where We Go From Here by Lucas Rocha. The theme of this month was a book in translation, and this book was originally published in Brazil in Brazilian Portuguese. My name is Laura. I'm a teen librarian at the Copley branch of Boston Public Library, and I will be discussing this book with some of my colleagues here who will introduce themselves in a second. If you guys have questions or comments as we're talking, make sure to drop them in the chat because we want to talk about what you guys are interested in. So, Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Michelle. I work at Teen Central. I like books, and I feel interesting things about this book.
Jackie?
I am Jackie. I'm the children's librarian at the Adams Street branch, which just opened like 2 weeks ago, so come on down. And I am super excited to do another teen book talk with you guys.
Yay. And Danny, do you want to introduce yourself and then get us started on the quotes that we're going to be talking about?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Danny. I'm the other teen librarian here at Teen Central. I work alongside Michelle. So thank you all for being here. This book, I definitely learned a lot, and we're just going to jump right into some quotes that we pulled. So that first theme is titled Human Rights, and these were things that were debated in this book that were on just people's livelihood, and I just did not like that their choices, their whatever lifestyle, their way of being was questioned by the people around them. So our first quote: "My parents think he is good company," and this is Ian speaking about his straight friend Gabriel. "My parents think he is good company, and usually don't lecture me at all when I tell them I'm hanging out with him, no matter how late, as if Gabriel could somehow save me from bad influences and convert me to what they now consider a normal lifestyle." So I resonated with this personally because I remember my parents growing up would be like, don't hang out with so-and-so because they were worried, or there was this stigma around if you hang out with them, you might be like them. So this hit home with me with that my parents were not going to accept my friends that I kept around just because of who they loved. Did anybody else have any feelings about this quote?
Yeah, I think I picked this one. I feel like a lot of the relationships with the parents in this book, like those are probably the most like realistic, I guess, aspects of this book for me. I think like at the end of this quote, they talk about like he just figured out that silence is the best way to communicate with his parents. And I feel like growing up, like as a teenager, that was how I got along with my parents, by like not talking about the things that could potentially bring up some kind of conflict.
Yeah.
I thought Gabriel was a really interesting and positive character in this book because even though to Ian's parents, like Gabriel is what they want Ian to be, they want him to be straight. I guess we didn't really like intro what this book is about. So if you guys haven't read it, it's about 3 different gay older teenagers in Brazil. 2 of whom are dealing with HIV, 1 of whom has just tested negative for HIV. So that's kind of like the main plot of the book is their interactions. But that even though Gabriel is like
negative, sorry, one of them has just tested positive. One of them has just tested negative, but one of them has just tested positive for HIV.
Yes. But yeah, so Gabriel's like who Ian's parents want him to be, but there's no like resentment between Ian and Gabriel's actually one of the people who Ian knows he can trust. He doesn't judge Ian for being gay. That doesn't affect how he interacts with him. He is not freaked out at all when Ian tells him that he's tested positive for HIV. So he's like this really good friend, and it was nice to see like a strong male friendship in a YA book that wasn't homophobic at all.
Did you say something, Jackie?
should we? Do we want to like go over briefly what the whole book is about? Like the relationships
do you
with
wanna-
the three guys?
Run through the characters for everyone?
Yes.
Or,
Okay.
or do you want someone else to?
Well, okay, so we can start with Ian, who he tested positive for HIV. Okay. And then he randomly met Victor
Mhm.
at the clinic. Okay. Victor's the one who tested negative, but like he saw how upset Ian was after his appointment and ended up giving him the information of his friend Henrique, who is also HIV positive. Right? Did I get all those relationships right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then like the whole story is just like their interactions with each other and yeah, okay.
And I'm just gonna add, because I think this adds a little texture. So Victor is at the clinic because he is in a relationship-ish, undefined situation with Henrique. He did not know that Henrique was HIV positive. Henrique is, at this point in his like journey with HIV, is undetectable, so he cannot transfer it. So just as an FYI, he does not have to disclose his status to anyone, but he chooses to disclose his status to Victor, and Victor freaks out and gets tested. And that is kind of like the major like beginning of the story.
Yeah.
I will say I did like with his relationship with Gabriel, I think it was nice. I think it's always nice when there's like books like this that kind of discuss hard topics that they tend to like lean into the drama of like disclosing your information or disclosing your like your sexuality with people. They kind of lean into the like what's gonna happen and like, and they lean into it a little bit in one way, but I'm glad that they be like, no, if people love you, then they will love you regardless of your sexual orientation, of your HIV AIDS status. So I really appreciated that we got to have this like one relationship that was like great.
Yeah. And as a disclaimer, regardless of you should feel you have the right to like have a conversation with your partner before anything, no matter what the end conversation is going to be. Like, don't be shy of the like when's the last time you check things out for yourself. Don't feel pressure to do anything. So without further ado, do you want to go on to the next quote, Chris? So this one is the relationship between Victor and Enrique, and how they just really touched me at the end with having been tested positive, and he just felt like love wasn't an option for him. So the quote goes, "Our dates left me with a good feeling, a sweet taste in the back of my throat that made me believe that I could in fact be happy and not consider it charity from the universe, because HIV did that to me, even after 3 years." And it was definitely one of those like super eye-openers of like not having to think about that from a personal level, and just realizing like how scary that this is going to change, that this changed so much for him, even just being able to love someone. Did anybody else have any feelings?
It makes me real sad and mad because Enrique was such a nice, good boy, and he deserves so much better than Victor. So that's what this brings up for me.
Yes. I think we're going to talk about that a lot.
I want to say, this is like getting into other topics, but I think when you get books that are translated, especially in translated with languages like romancy level languages like Portuguese, like Spanish, they tend to be like super descriptive and have these like beautiful allegories that are really good and translate really well, like this quote, I think. And I think it is hard in this book particularly because you get something like this that is like really well written and like has like a beautiful sentence, and I think it's juxtaposed with a lot of it just like starts and stops really, like it
Yeah.
juts, and so right, like you get like beautiful taste in my mouth, and because HIV did that to me, even after 3 years, it's like it like halts, which I think maybe it like evokes like a little bit of how like the virus does that, but I think it was sometimes really hard to read such like halting language over and over again in the book. So like kind of has to do with the quote, but like also just kind of about the writing in the book in general.
Okay. So, on to our next quote.
Mhm.
Afraid that some political shit will happen and the meds will stop being distributed. That again, tying to the human rights aspect. So throughout the book, we learned that Brazil is very on top of things and informative, and just they provide care and screening and medication to anyone that tests positive. And again, this one was an eye opener of like, so what this is something that a lot of people don't have to worry about. They don't think about. So what happens if things change? If parties change? If beliefs change, and all of a sudden you're fearing for your your right to live just because someone thinks that this isn't the way that we should go and it's a bad image. So that quote just really stood out to me as just something horrific.
Yeah, I wish we had like gotten a chance to see a little bit more about how like logistically it works. I guess that wouldn't be super entertaining, but like we get that one moment where he expresses this like fear that like that could all go away very quickly, and I feel like that's the only time we see that in the book.
Mhm.
Yeah, I kind of wish we had seen a little bit more of that.
I feel like we kind of get it out of, I think, Henrique, with reading his dialogue, which we'll touch on in that little voice. You do hear a lot of like what's going on in his head during all this time.
Mm-hmm.
But on to the next one. And this one is the dynamic of Enrique, I believe, or Enrique and his mother. How do you think and this is from his mom. How do you think I'm going to show my face outside now when the news gets out into the neighborhood and everyone knows you're nothing but a degenerate? And this part just broke my heart throughout the whole book. It was how when something happened to her son, she just dropped him. Like he went on and moved out and found a roommate. But again, just tying to that part of like, your human livelihood shouldn't be up for debate and shouldn't be weighed as, oh, well, you're less worthy now. Like this is a person and this is your kin. But those are my feelings about that quote. Anyone else?
I think one thing that I did like about this book is that Enrique does have this kind of found family with his roommate, who's a drag queen, and all the other kind of drag queens in the city. And then Enrique and Ian and Victor kind of end up forming a very close friendship group with each other as well. And it's really terrible and unfortunate, but this reaction that Enrique got is a reaction that people will get when they come out to their parents, and showing that found family can be your family as much as or than your blood family is, and that like that's okay, and you can still have a very happy, fulfilled life with a family that you create yourself. I think that's always like, it's sad that that has to be the case, but it's good to see that being lifted up as something like powerful
Yeah.
and good.
I think especially like considering culturally where this is all taking place, like in Brazil and in like most of South America, like family is always first. Like
Mhm.
there's just no option beyond that. So like seeing something like this is like, you know, you have to like put yourself in his shoes, and then also considering like the other relationships between the parents and their sons. Like, you know, was it, I forget, at one point Ian and Enrique were talking about their parents and how like one had like such like an easy experience, like he never even had to come out because his parents just kind of knew, and like that juxtaposed with this kind of reaction like is interesting, but also like kind of appalling.
Is this when he was talking about coming out, or is this when he talked about like closing his status?
It was a
remember.
It was a memory he was sharing.
Okay.
Well,
I think
actually,
a little
no.
of both.
Oh, okay.
It was. I think it was the post. It was the post, and then mom found out. So then mom texted him like, "Why didn't you tell me?" So,
Oh yeah.
do you want to take it, Michelle? It leads into the next quote. Do you want to explain what happened?
Oh, so yeah, this just totally the end of the book. FYI, sorry if you wanted to read it. You should have read it already. But throughout the book, you hear about Enrique's ex-boyfriend Carlos, who essentially like really, really broke his heart. But now
By just running away to New Zealand.
really just leaving and running away to New Zealand. So after Enrique and Victor kind of have their situation, they come back together, and actually no, they don't come back together. But Carlos pops back into Enrique's life, says that he wants to be with him, but Enrique doesn't want that anymore, and he says, and Carlos leaves and says like, I'm gonna get back at you. And how he gets back at him is posting his HIV status all on the internet, like writing it on the wall of his house, like in spray paint, like just kind of publicly shaming him, essentially. And I think it kind of shows how this is really still stigmatized, like in everyday culture about and so yeah, it's like a really bad part of the story, but you get to see again, kind of going along with Laura, how Enrique's like his roommates, his like found family of Ian and Victor and Gabriel, they kind of rally around him to make him see that all of these people still care about him, and he still gets a lot of like hate by people who think that he's disgusting, or that he personally did something wrong by contracting HIV, which obviously he did not. So yeah, was that good? I don't know if there's anything.
Yeah, I don't know if Chris, you went on to the next quote, but and this was put in here by Jackie, but there's just so much hate, so much unprovoked hatred for someone whom these people have never exchanged a single word in their lives. It terrifies me how much hate can accumulate and explode on a computer screen. Jackie, did you have any further thoughts?
Yeah, I just like this part. I mean, we all know how easy it is for people to feel like the anonymity of the internet gives you the ability to basically say whatever you want and like not think of the consequences. I think I liked seeing this part and then seeing how they dealt with the situation by like okay, yeah, they committed a little bit of vandalism, sure, but it was like done in like a beautiful sort of way with like a good message to get back at Enrique after he did all of this. So from like that hateful moment, you got like this beautiful image of like the rainbow paint on Carlos's house, which he totally deserved. So yeah, I just wanted to include that bit because it's like we have to keep in mind that like this is a constant fear for people who are in this situation where they feel like that power to be able to disclose this information and share that information about themselves can be so quickly taken away from them in just a split second by an Instagram post.
So on to the next one. This is a debate between Victor and his best friend, and Victor's pretty much trying to say that, trying to justify why he broke up with or stopped talking to Enrique, and he gets a little brave with his word choices. So this is his friend reacting to him. You cannot be serious. Her eyes widen. You know that kissing won't give you anything but herpes, right? Stop being such a hypocrite, Victor. When we go out, you're more than happy to make out with people whose names you don't even know, and now you're giving me this? I'm gonna get HIV from a kiss? Bullshit. And I'm glad that he got told finally, because Victor was a character in this book, and hypocrisy is definitely the word. Anybody else?
Yeah, Victor was like. So one of the things, like, we kind of before we hopped on here, we were talking about like whether or not we liked this book, and like I think we all agreed that the book was important, and it is something that like I felt totally uninformed, like as I'm reading this. Like when I think of HIV, I think of like the AIDS epidemic, and like I'm thinking of like the history of HIV, and like I didn't really know what it's like to live with HIV now in like 2021. I almost forgot what year it was. So like yeah, I feel like Victor is almost like a stand-in for people who are uninformed, just like I was. That being said, he was kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
think-
Mhm.
No, go ahead.
just like agreeing with Danny. Like the hypocrisy was definitely apparent.
Yeah, I think this is an example of the book kind of challenging the stigma of HIV and sharing information in an effective way for the story. So, kind of like going off what Jackie said, it's obviously a really important topic. It can teach people things if they didn't know a lot about the topic. But there are also points in the book where, like, doctors or clinicians are explaining how HIV works, what it means to be undetectable, and the fact that if you are undetectable, you are not going to be transmitting HIV. You can live a pretty normal life. What PrEP is, and how you can take PrEP to help protect yourself from potentially contracting HIV, and all this information that's like really important for anyone to know, but particularly I think for young people to know for your own health across the board. But at a lot of points in the book, instead of really integrating that really important information into the story, it's just kind of like he has plopped a pamphlet into 3 pages of the book, and you're just like straight reading an informational pamphlet. And I wish that kind of information could have been worked more into casual conversations, maybe between Ian and Enrique, or between Victor and his friends who know some stuff about it, instead of just kind of this like clinical explanation. I don't know. I think that maybe would have been a more engaging but equally effective way to share the information.
Yeah, they did it like at one point right after they woke up, after they went to the show, and Victor heard the voicemail that Enrique had left him. Everyone's like waking up hungover, and the first thing that Enrique does is take his medication. And Victor is like, kind of like, oh, it's weird. Like, we're in the middle of an argument right now, and you're just like popping a pill. And Enrique has to be like, this is what I do every morning when I wake up. Like, this is my routine. So, like, that was like the one moment that I can remember that I'm like, okay, like that, the reality of what your life is after you've contracted HIV, like, it's in these like little moments like this.
Yeah, I think they even talk about it, like from the quote before, we were talking about like the political like situation, because I think it was either Enrique or Ian who was saying that like I need these pills to live. Like this little pill, I can't just like skip it for a day because this is helping me stay alive. Which is really intense that like a governing situation can be like, and these pills now that you need to stay alive are just going to be too expensive or like not able to get. But I think, yeah, kind of going back to what Laura said, I feel like Ian as a character was just the pamphlet. Like, I can't really give you a description of his personality. Like, his personality in the book was person who has just contracted HIV. Like, there was really no character development between him. I feel like we know way more about his best friend than we do about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's I couldn't even tell you. Like, I remember Gabriel because he said that Gabriel was black, but I like Ian Black. I don't know. I'm assuming not because they said that Gabriel was, but like he just was like an avenue for which to have us learn more about HIV, which was like interesting. As again, there was a lot that I learned, but like interesting in the like pamphlet way, not interesting in the novel way.
I think that also points out that is dehumanizing. Like, in a way, you are stigmatizing Ian in just a different way that the other people in this book are stigmatizing him, because having HIV is just a very small part of the person that he is, and the fact that he really doesn't have much of a personality that we can pull out, or like other super big interests. Like, we know about his friends and family, but I know we were talking earlier today about Cameron Garrett has a YA book called Full Disclosure, which is about a teenage girl who has HIV, and a whole story of her like moving to a new school and having to decide whether she's going to disclose her status to people in her school, and forming relationships and falling in love, and being this like a very complete character where how she deals with her status is part of her story, but there's so much more to the plot and story than just the HIV. I think, Michelle, you brought up a good point there too, that there needs to be more to the characters, because if you're making them just about their status, then you're trying to take away from the stigma, but you're also inadvertently making this the most important thing about them.
Yep.
Which is kind of a good segue into the next quote. So the book is written with every chapter is from each other's perspective. So it's Ian, then you're reading Enrique's perspective, then you're reading Victor's perspective, all throughout the thing. And when you learn about Victor's, like you read about his clinic experience, and he's coming out, and once he gets his news that he's fine and he's relieved, that interaction that we do get is when he's like excited at the bus stop, I believe is what it was.
I think so.
I think Ian goes like, "Good for you," and he's like, "Oh, but my bad," and then he like quiets down. But here's another quote on this to him not remembering. Things are happening outside of your own situation right now. I realized way too late, and this is after he talked with Enrique. This is Victor. I realized way too late. that my words were cruel, but the worst part is that his eyes had an exhaustion about them the moment he heard those words, as if he'd known that sooner or later I'd just become another disappointment in his life. It must have seemed to him that my words came from a script, a story he was all too used to hearing. Jackie, I believe you pulled this one?
Yeah.
Can't remember what fight this was after.
So this is right after they woke up, and everyone was a little hungover. Yeah, I think that was the scene. And Victor basically blamed Enrique for contracting HIV. He made the decision to do whatever he did, and that's why he has it. And I think he knew as soon as he said it that it was cruel and wrong to say. And we do later see him apologizing desperately, and trying to talk to Enrique again. But yeah, this is such a sad part for me because of all the characters, I felt for Enrique the most, and then for this to happen, and this is just what he expects to happen with every relationship, and he just seems so tired. So to hear Victor confirm those fears, it's just heartbreaking.
This quote definitely plays into what I mentioned before about feeling like Victor is not good enough for Enrique. Enrique deserves better. He is expecting Enrique to deal with his feelings about this thing that Enrique has been living with for a long time. When you're dealing with a marginalized person, no matter what way they are marginalized in Enrique's case, it is his health status. It is your responsibility to educate yourself and not to bring that onto them, and not to expect them to forgive you because you are lashing out in fear or confusion or whatever. And at this point, Enrique has also been educated, I think more than once, about the fact that Enrique had an almost 0% chance of transmitting the HIV to him. He knows that he's negative. He knows how HIV works when you are medicated and you are undetectable, and he is still lashing out like this. And I don't necessarily think he deserves to be forgiven for behaving in the way that he continues to behave towards Enrique. And I feel like this also kind of plays into, he's one of the characters in this book that falls into the trap of placing morality on health, which is a problem we see across society that I think we don't address enough, and that people still feel like it's okay to place morality on having a chronic illness, on being HIV positive, on being a fat person. Things that are related to health are still something that society kind of lets you make moral judgments on, and that's real messed up, and we should challenge that. Soapbox.
Woo! Definitely. Chris, can we segue on to the next theme, which ties right in? So these quotes are titled "That Little Voice," and for me, they tied to mental health. And personally, for me, as a hyper-aware kid and a hyper-aware person, they touched a lot on anxiety. So here we go. And once in a while, the bad thoughts happen, but we learn to hide how we feel because it's almost always just the medicine lying to us and messing with our heads, making us believe that nobody cares when in fact a lot of people do care. This was both loading, I felt that, but also informative on just the side effects that come with the medication in the beginning when they are doing treatment, and that it just, it's doing a lot of things, and it was forewarned a lot to let it do its thing. Don't go out. You're gonna have all these symptoms. But I mean, even as someone that didn't go through like any chemical like help right now. Like even just reading this, like I cannot imagine being an anxious person and then having to introduce something totally new to my life and then have that ramp up. But yeah, that's what this quote stood out to me. Anyone have any thoughts?
I feel like there's another part that reminded me of this moment. What is her name? The friend.
Sandra? Sharon?
Sandra?
Yes,
Sandra?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sandra.
Sandra's right.
When she, it's like towards the end when she's talking to Victor, and she's basically saying like she finally kind of like is a little bit more sympathetic, I guess. Like his whole thing is like, I don't get why she's like so mad at me that I won't consider dating Enrique. So at this point she kind of like she goes like, listen, I get it. Like, I'm not in your shoes. I don't know what it's like, but like the fact of the matter is like all you're concerned about right now are like the fears of other people, and like that doesn't need to happen here. So I feel like the support that they get from their friends is like another positive for this book that I enjoyed. Going back to that whole found family thing. But yeah, that's it. It just that reminded me of that moment.
Okay. The next quote. Knowing is not the same as feeling. Knowing is not living without the fear that things might go wrong. This one was right after and I can't remember if it's Ian that gets all the information, but he's the doctors, the therapists are like reassuring him, like, don't worry, like, you know, things have really advanced and you can live a normal life and it's all great. But like, I truly understood that, like in his head, like you're telling me it's going to be okay, but I don't feel okay right now. Like this just happened. Like I felt that, like, you know, this is still just a state of shock. So that's why I pulled that quote.
I think that quote kind of speaks to the importance of, you know, HIV representation, illness representation, and media in general, because even if this book wasn't necessarily always the most well executed, it does present a portrayal of two HIV positive young people pretty positively living their lives. Like they have struggles, their lives aren't perfect, but they are largely happy. They have things that they care about, they have jobs, they have really close friends, stuff like that. And obviously this is kind of based in anxiety, but also, you know, a doctor telling you all of this is one thing, but if you've never seen positive portrayals of people living with HIV in the media, all you've seen is like Philadelphia and Angels in America and things that are really historically important, but really just tragic. Of course, it's going to be hard to really know in your soul because you haven't seen it in your life or in the media that it's true.
You feel that too when Ian goes to meet with Enrique. You see, like, oh, he needed someone, like, just to reassure him who was dealing with the same thing. Like, he needed, like, we need representation, but like he needed it, like, personally in his life. He needed to connect with someone who had been and was going through the same thing as him to feel like seen and connected with. And he kind of latches on to Enrique because he's like, well, because he's afraid to tell like other people in his life, but also because he like really just needed someone to like kind of be able to go through this with him.
And even like just like the fact that they keep pointing out that whenever the two of them talk, like they always end up just talking about Enrique's problems, but that's still helpful to Ian. Like I thought was an interesting point too. Sometimes it's literally just about being able to hear about another person going through the same or similar issues.
Moving on to a lighthearted next one. So organizing gives me a certain kind of power, as if arranging the objects on my nightstand by size were a way of sorting out my life and all its chaos. This is Enrique, I believe, when he's like cleaning, he's like deep cleaning. Like, so this is just my plug for like deep cleaning is a form of meditation. Self-care is important. Put yourself on a routine, any kind of routine. And I'm big on exercise. Talk to me. Let me know what's up. Next quote. So this one was towards the end, which is when Enrique's reflecting on fear of this post just happened, and he feel like he cannot leave his apartment. What if someone stops me, beats me up, calls me names? It feels like there's a bullseye printed on my back, like I'm one of those wanted posters you see in cowboy movies. And I don't know, I did like feel, and I was like scared for him, like as soon as like they revealed like, oh, this happened. And I remember like turning over to Laura and I was like, do people really do this? Do people really post other people's business on Instagram like this? I was just so heated. And so scared for him as well. Anybody have any thoughts when the post happened?
I don't know. I like at that point I was like just so angry that this was gonna happen, and like I stupidly did not expect this. I don't know what I thought Carlos was going to do, but then when I saw, I was like, are you kidding me? Yeah, I can't even imagine like the powerlessness that he would have felt, and you know, getting that power taken away from you, like in such like, it's Instagram, like it feels like such a stupid way, like ugh.
Yeah. Ugh. Yes.
Yeah.
Ugh. Where's that ugh button on Instagram? I guess you can report stuff, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I think I felt sad. I'm going to be honest. When this happened, I was mostly just annoyed because I was just like, I felt like they threw this out of nowhere in the storyline. Like, I kind of assumed that Carlos was going to come back because that's how story writing works. And like, so if you mention something in the beginning, it's going to come back in the end. Like, that's how this works. But kind of just to throw in this character to do this like reprehensible thing with like no warning, like just because, and like it just felt like lazy writing.
Yeah.
So I didn't really feel like sad. I mostly just felt annoyed because I was like, this is bad writing.
Same.
It's like they knew that they needed some kind of big conflict at the end to like pack that punch in, I guess, and
Yeah.
did it all in like the last like 50 pages of the book.
Yeah.
I feel like
all of this happened. Spoiler: all of this whole thing happens in the last 15 pages of the book. You meet Carlos, this happens, and then it gets resolved. And yeah, couldn't be more than 15 to 20 pages.
I feel like in some ways, like the same way we were talking about the HIV status being like the one characteristic, also just like having the climax of the book be something so melodramatic and like cliche, it kind of takes away from the power of what the book could have been. I think if it had been like a quieter story about friendship and these people coming together and just like real day-to-day events that more people can relate to than your ex-boyfriend running away to New Zealand because he doesn't like that you have HIV, randomly appearing back months later, deciding he wants to be with you for some reason, getting mad that you don't want to be with him anymore, and then blasting you on social media. Like, sure, that could happen, but it's so much more dramatic than I think it needed to be.
Also, I read trash books all the time. Love me a romance novel. Like, And so I definitely think there isn't a lot of representation with HIV characters. And so yeah, I think at least I am probably judging this a little bit harder because I'm like, if you're going to do something, you got to do it right. Like, you are speaking up for a stigmatized group. Let's put a little bit of effort into it, homie, and let's really think about what we're writing and what we're doing. And I think they definitely did in the information portion of it. Like, I know so much more about HIV than I did before I read this book, in ways that I'm really grateful for. And then a bunch of other stuff that I just was like, wow, this isn't good.
Okay. So our third theme is the fear of needing to be perfect in relationships. And for the sake of time, Chris, can we bump it up 2 quotes to I don't want you to think? All right. So this one is from Ian's friend, I believe. I don't want you to think that every single thing that comes up in your life will make me stop being friends with you. Dummy. So this is, he's terrified. He hasn't texted his best friend in I don't know how long. So his best friend shows up to his doorstep and is like, "What's wrong?" And he's nothing.
Yeah, he drove an hour and a half or something.
Yeah. Yeah, so here's, what a good friend. He kind of kidnaps him into his car, not really, and then they talk, and he shares it, and he thinks he's gonna, lose his friend. And I could understand, and we do get another side of this from Enrique and his mom, where that was one example of, okay, he shared this information, or even before. I mean, first it was just who he could love, right? But he was disowned by his own mom. So I could understand where he was scared of what was his friend gonna think just by sharing this information. But I just wanted to keep this in because it's a good example of your friends are your friends and you're gonna know who they are during your toughest times. It's the thing. Anyone else have feelings about his bestie?
I mean, I think it also goes to show again how his best friend had way more characterization and personality than him.
Yep. I love Gabriel.
It's great. I was like, maybe this shouldn't have been a book about him. Again, you find out all these great things. You're like, wait, why is he friends with Ian? It doesn't seem like a very good friend.
Yep.
And you learned so much about Ian's sister, too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Truly, what is Ian studying in college?
Economy? Is he the economy guy?
I thought that was
Maybe.
his interest was.
Or no, or is he the film guy? I don't even know.
Exactly. But they go into so much depth about his sister. She wants to be a doctor. She's taking the medical boards. She's studying all the time. She's so stressed. I know nothing about Ian. Who is he? What is he studying? Is he even in school? He didn't open up a book. That annoys me about YA books sometimes in general. They're so studious.
They never go to school.
They never go to school. You never hear about them studying or stressed out about tests. I took 2 AP classes in high school and I was so stressed all the time.
That's how come we know so much info about sister, because she's the one that goes to school.
Microeconomics. Thanks in the chat. Microeconomics. That's what he's studying in school. Thank you, chat. Thank you. What to do.
So I'll put up 2 quotes, but there's a difference. Okay. But there's a difference between being in a relationship where we know the other person is no good for us and being in one with someone who's made a mistake. Jackie, I believe this one was yours.
I wrote this down because I just felt like it was good advice in general. But yeah, I think so it becomes the reason, or the this is talking about forgiving Victor for making the mistake of being incredibly cruel and blaming Enrique for contracting HIV. I'm pretty sure that's where this came from. So, like, I feel like in theory, it is a good way of thinking. It was maybe not so much put into practice here. Like, I feel like what Victor did was not just a mistake. I feel like he just continued to show over and over that this is just how he feels. It's interesting that this quote is in there because I don't think it hit the way that it was meant to hit. But in general, great advice.
Yes, I agree. Good advice to keep in mind, but keep it in mind as truth. And remember that someone discounting your humanity in any way is not a mistake. It is being no good.
Twice.
Yep.
Like, we talk about it one time, but the impetus of this is that Victor freaks out at him and runs to get tested because he does not believe when he says, even though we used a condom and and you can't get it from, and I'm undetectable. And I believe he said we use a condom at the behest of Enrique.
Yeah, like,
and
he insisted,
even though they were having oral sex, which is a note all of the teens in the chat. FYI. Just saying. Even though he still made this gross exaggeration and didn't talk to him because he disclosed to him that he was HIV positive. So I don't know. Why would this is his personality. If we get nothing about Ian's personality, we get a ton about Victor's personality, and almost none of it is good.
Ding, ding,
Also,
ding.
Before we run out of time, I also think it's important to mention, since we're talking about this book, that it is important to get tested if you are sexually active with some sense of regularity. And if you are looking for low-cost healthcare, whether it is sexual healthcare or any other kind of healthcare, Planned Parenthood provides a lot of those services for you. And if they can't provide the services that you need, they would be able to help you find other low-cost or free options for your healthcare. So, another soapbox.
I do want one more Victor. This was a big red flag quote for me, all right? Real quick. Shouldn't relationships be about one's happiness and feeling good? I think all these hiccups are the universe telling us we need some distance between us. And I was like, buddy, excuse me? And this just ties to Laura's and I's feelings of he deserved more. He deserved more.
It's a completely selfish thought.
And our final quote collection, self-acceptance, if we can get there real fast. All right. So this is from I don't know whose viewpoint actually, but here we go. I got tired of having arguments with my parents that led nowhere, and I figured out that the only way I could maintain a relationship with them was through silence. Silence is the best form of dialogue.
That was Ian.
Yeah, I think I clipped the quotes, and yeah, it was one of your long quotes. And
Oh yeah.
not, again, dark, harsh, but I do like that his point was, all right, what's best for me? What am I gonna need? And planting that first seed of finding your people. If it wasn't his family, there's nothing wrong with him in the end. Any quick thoughts before we go on to the next one?
I did like this because in the book, Ian does not disclose his HIV status to his parents because he doesn't feel like it would be good. And I think I actually like that because I think sometimes, again, talking about how books can lean into one way of and then he discloses it and everything is fine. And sometimes it's not fine. Sometimes you don't feel safe. And that's okay. If you do not want to disclose your sexual orientation to your parents, if you do not want to disclose your HIV status to your parents, you do not have to. it is okay. You can disclose that to the people that you want to, especially if you don't feel safe, especially if you don't have the resources to take care of yourself. You do not have to. And I appreciated that he didn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. Chris? So, the best way to end our quotes is how this book should have ended. And this was Enrique's voicemail to Victor, I believe. I think. Oh, yeah. And that's what I mean. I want to be happy, but I'm tired of begging for it. If you don't want to set your prejudices aside, great. Be happy with them. I'll try to be as happy as I can, and when I make it, I want to look in your face and laugh. You know why? Because I'll be happy, and you won't make me miserable with your selfishness. End of book. You don't need to read the rest of the book.
The end of the book.
Agree.
And those were our quotes. Any final thoughts before we get on to events that are coming up?
I put it in the
I just feel
Discord
like
chat.
I'm. Oh, go ahead.
This is a slight note to correct. I put in the Discord chat, but if you could put a link to full disclosure in the chat, so that if people wanted to read a book about HIV, those may be a little bit better than this one.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Good
say
balance.
what reading this book has made me want to do is read another better book about this topic. So I'm thankful to it for that.
And I guess also I want to say a lot of people seem to really, really love this book. So if you really loved it, do not let us thinking it was kind of lukewarm change your opinion on that. If you loved it, that's awesome. It's good to have different opinions on things. And if you haven't read it and you think it sounds interesting, give it a try because maybe you'll like it in a way that we didn't.
I love that I learned a lot. That was
so much. Yeah,
Yeah,
learned so much.
sure. Want me to talk about events now?
Yeah.
Okay. So upcoming, we have Bookstagram tomorrow from 3 to 3:30. Is that going to be you, Lauren, and Allie?
Yes,
Okay.
we will be on Instagram talking about upcoming YA releases for September and giving suggestions if you're looking for a new book to read. So stop by.
Nice. And then on September 3rd, we have a sticker making workshop, and that is going to be from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. We also have a college essay basic training workshop. Those will be on Tuesday and Thursday, September 7th and September 9th. We have from 3 to 4:30, there'll be a virtual one, and then right after from 4:30 to 6, an in-person one, and that's going to be at Teen Central?
Yep.
I believe.
Okay. Sticker making one is also at Teen Central, literally in the room that I am currently in.
Perfect. Our next teen book discussion, that's going to be September 16th at 3 p.m. We're going to be reading Miss Marvel No Normal. I'll be back for that one. I'm excited. I haven't
I think we all
touched those
will.
books
I think
yet.
all
so.
four of us.
Nice.
Are we?
Yay.
Mhm.
Oh,
Cool. And then last but not least, Trash to Treasures. And that one's September 22nd at 4:30. That is a crafting program, right?
we have examples sitting in our office over there that we totally remembered to bring out and show to you guys.
It's fine. It's fine. Danny will be showing you how to make paper cranes, and I will be showing you how to make hedgehogs out of old books.
Oh, we're very on Sonic themed for Teen Central.
Yeah, we are.
The light in this room keeps just like turning off on me. This is
Oh,
great.
you look great, Jackie. Truly.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye. Hopefully, we'll see some of you next month. Miss Marvel's awesome. You should read that one.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
Something about the way hoping to run my day, 'cause I can't get my mind off you. And the way you run the game, it makes me wanna stay. 'Cause girl, you got me captivated, can I say that? I just can't let you go. No, no. No, no. No, no. I just can't let you go. No, no. No, no. No, no. I just can't do it. You're my angel in disguise, the apple of my eye. 'Cause when you're here, there's nothing I can do but putting all I can to make you understand. It's pretty simple. There's no one like you. If we run away together, would anybody know? Or would the only thing that cross our minds be where to go? If we run away together, I gotta know why you're standing by while I get closer and closer and closer to you. You didn't need to try to walk into my life, 'cause when I saw you, I just knew I couldn't live without you. Let me lay it out for you, so you don't get it twisted. There's something special going on with you and me. It's the way I feel when your body's next to mine. It's the way you heal everything that's on my mind. The way I feel when you give me all I'm asking for. It's the way, it's the way, it's the way, it's the way, it's the way.